All right, my friend Chris, this one is for you. I am going to create this video just to show you a basic traditional writing an offer for a residential purchase agreement for a buyer. So let's jump right in. All right, so first and foremost, we are going to jump into our zip forms. Boom, right here. So I'm going to hit new and we're going to do purchase or offer. We're going to type in, let's say Mr. Mickey Mouse. He is looking to relocate. Now, you can decide if you want to do the address here or a name. For a buyer, I do a name. For my sellers, I do the address. That's just how I keep track of it, but this is completely your preference. And something you'll notice in this training also is, or I should say tutorial, I'm just going to tell you what certain preferences are from agent to agent so that you can decide what to incorporate or not into your business. So I'll make sure to verbally express to you what are options and what some agents do or don't do. So for example, I use the name for a buyer files, and then I use the address for my seller files. This is residential, it's active, and we're going to jump into my template. So you should have something very similar to this. So this one is a residential buyer. My template is set up to automatically populate certain documents. This should be what happens for you too. If you need any assistance with this, myself or Katie can help you. You can customize your templates with just a few clicks of a button. So very simple to do so. We're going to go ahead and save. It's going to go ahead and apply this template and automatically populate my transaction. So it's going to open up in summary. I automatically just go straight to document so I can start writing this contract for my client. So we're going to go ahead, and here you'll notice that I have the cover sheet, the residential purchase agreement for your protection, get a home inspection, and then because of crazy COVID-19 coronavirus, I also have dropped in the PED form for the visitor, which is the buyer in this situation. So I dropped that in automatically just to have it here. One thing you might need to add in here is if you have the FHA or a VA buyer, you will need the FVAC, which is the amendatory clause. So that's something I don't automatically populate. It's something I drop in by simply clicking all forms, and then I'll just type in the FVAC and a mandatory clause, click it, it drops it in, and boom, now you're fully set. So you can do that if you need. So first thing I'm going to do is open the cover sheet. As you get a little bit more into your business, you might find yourself not needing or even wanting to use the cover sheet. So it's completely your decision. I still do on occasion, but there are times that I'll jump straight into the purchase contract. So it's your decision, however you want to do it. And then I also just wanted to let you know, before you get started here, it's very important also that you have open the, sorry, just a second, Zoom. There we go. You have the MLS. So I grabbed this property totally at random. I don't have a client for this property. I just grabbed it to show you so that this could be used as my example. So you're definitely going to want this open. You're going to need the address. You're going to need the MLS number, and you're also going to need the APN or assessor's parcel number. So it's good to have this open in front of you. You'll also need the contact information for the agent, which you can click here to populate. So when we get to that section, we will click that. So let's just dive right in. So the first thing we're going to do is we need to name Mr. Mickey Mouse here as a buyer. And if your template automatically populates this check mark, great. If not, please make sure it's checked. It is important. Also, if you do have a phone number for your client, you can certainly add that in. And the most important thing is their email. I'm just going to use my own email here just so I can type this up quickly and get through it. If there's a spouse or other person participating as a buyer, please make sure their information's here. As a buyer's agent, you typically will not have the seller's information, so skip right over seller 1 and 2. And here's where the property information starts. So let's go back to our MLS. We're going to grab this MLS number here. I just simply hold the control key and hit the C for control copy. This is on my Windows device. If you have a Mac, it's the command and then C. I don't know what computer you use. I think you mentioned before you had a Chromebook. So control C and then control V is paste. So I'm going to do that. I'm also going to go ahead. I want to grab the full legal address here, and it will auto-populate for me. Boom. Done, just like that. And then I'm going to grab the APN, just like I mentioned. Sometimes there's dashes, sometimes there's not. Either way, it's completely acceptable with or without the dashes. And then most of this I am going to skip. The only things I'm going to put in here are, what are my clients offering for this house? It's listed at $319,900. I'm going to go ahead and round up to $320,000. And then for the deposit amount, which is also, this is describing the earnest money deposit, the EMD, I always do my very best to get a full 1%. So in this case, it'd be $3,200. If for any reason they wanted to do $3,000 or even $2,500, I let them know that it's not going to be necessarily a deciding factor for an offer, but it does show a little bit more muscle and a little bit more strength if you are right at that 1% or even sometimes higher, just depending on what the client wants to do. But anything less than 1% can be a deterrent. It's not always. I just tell them I would rather you not lose a house over not wanting to put money up front, which is earnest money. It does show the seller earnestly that you are serious about this transaction and moving forward. So that's my little spiel about the EMD. Okay, and then I just scroll down. This is a residential purchase. This should automatically populate on your template as well. If you wanted this offer to expire, you can write in an expiration date here. That's completely up to your client, and you can ask them, do you want this offer to expire or not? That's where you put that information. As a buyer's agent, I typically do not put in here who the escrow company is going to be. If you'd like to, you're welcome to do so, but 9 times out of 10, the seller and selling agent will determine escrow. Okay, so buyer's broker information. So this should automatically populate for you. And funny enough, this is actually wrong. I don't have Hillman Street as my main address anymore for Keller Williams. And I also don't have the correct numbers in here. So just making sure your templates are accurate. Now that I've seen this, I'm going to go ahead and change this in just a little bit. So for now, I'm going to go ahead and type this in. So you are the buyer's broker. And just so you know, interestingly enough, there's a couple different ways that you'll notice in these contracts that they actually define you. So you're the buyer's broker, but you're also the selling agent because you're selling the house to a buyer. And then the seller's broker is also the listing agent. So it can get a little bit confusing. You are the buyer, they are the seller. But again, you're also the selling and they are the listing agent. So just if you get a little confused there, just a little heads up and kind of a little cheat sheet for you. So this is the Keller Williams number. That's my number. I do know the address, East Main Street. There we have it. Just going to populate all this information in as quick as I can. Perfect. Just making sure all this information is correct. This is not a fax number. Just going to go ahead and do that. Perfect. Okay, and that's correct. My information is here. My brokerage, their address, phone numbers, name, and license numbers are correct here. Perfect. Now, this is where you're going to put the listing agent's information. So back to MLS. If you see here, this is actually highlighted and underlined in blue because it is a little link. It's embedded. So if you jump on that, it should pull up the agent's information for you in a pop-up box. So just give it a second. Boom, there we go, Sarah McHugh. Okay, great. So let's grab, first and foremost, let's grab her email. I kind of work from the bottom up. Grabbing her email. There she goes. Going back, gonna grab her DRE number. So this is her DRE number, and this is the office DRE number. So just make sure you differentiate. This is her number here. Again, I'm just using Control-C to copy and Control-V to paste. This is the office DRE. And the legal name here, so Modern Broker. This might populate. I've done work with Modern Broker before. There it goes. And we're going to want to go ahead and plug in the address. I'm just going to grab that here. Again, Control Copy, Control Paste, got it. If there is an office telephone number, I would go ahead and drop that in. If not, you can use her phone number for the contacts, which is what I do for my side. I always put my telephone number, even if it's saying office. So I'm going to put it for telephone number. I'm going to put it for cell number, seller's agent name. We saw her name here. Actually, let me just make sure I'm spelling this accurately. Here we go. Sarah has no H on it. Okay, good. Got it. And this is in fact her phone number here. It's so weird how it auto-populates these two little things. I always get rid of them. I'm like OCD. So totally, again, a preference for you. If there is a fax number listed here, you can throw it up, but your decision. Okay. And we don't need this anymore. Jumping back in. Okay. Here we go. Okay. Lender information. So I think you use your brother. I'm going to go ahead and drop in my lender's info here. If you have the address to the lender, please write it in. Remember what the address is for Vero. If you need to grab it, go ahead and just type it into Google, like Vero Mortgage, and grab it from Google. And the reason I do this, again, so this is my first little preference here, preference alert. I dropped this in because, believe it or not, it actually does come up during escrow. They do need the address of the mortgage company. And whatever time I can save someone, I'm just going to save them that time. Even though it only takes 10 seconds to look it up, there's so many moving parts in real estate, and I just would rather be that person that provides as much information up front as possible just to help everyone involved. So I'm Todd Fitton over here, got him going on. I do know his phone number by heart, which I guess could be a good thing or a bad thing, but we'll just go ahead and say Mr. Mickey Mouse is a conventional buyer in this situation. Okay. Appraisal information, you're not going to know. Title information, same principle I use for escrow. Traditionally, sellers and selling agents will decide the title and escrow company. If you'd like to write it in, you're welcome to do so. Pest control, if applicable. Here's going to be where your natural hazard disclosures go in. I just type it in just like this. I know they have like industry leader, but I just type snap NHD period. And then for this home warranty one, even if I am going to ask for a home warranty, I leave this blank on the cover sheet so that I can jump in on the RPA and write it a little bit more specific and have more control over where it populates. So kind of learning as I went during the first little bit of my real estate career, I determined that it was easier and kind of just more efficient to leave this blank because it populates a little bit different. So homeowners association, if applicable, again, as the buyer's agent, you might not know this, so it's something you can certainly leave blank on the cover sheet and take care of that later. So we're going to go ahead and save this, click our back button here, and jump into the residential purchase agreement. Just going to take a second to load. All right, we're going to scroll to the top and we'll work our way down and just make sure everything is accurate. Okay, so just following along here, we will dive in. So you'll see here that it shows Mickey Mouse as the buyer. It doesn't have this box checked, and it does need to be. So we'll go ahead and check that box. And again, if there's a secondary buyer, they would go here and you would select this box. This is a good time for you to make sure you've typed everything accurately and you've got all the information you need. So Keller Williams Realty, their DRE number, my name, looks good. Scrolling down, this is all just codes and liabilities and, you know, all this little really fine print over this agency relationship agreement here. This is the possible representation page, scrolling down to the bottom. Again, just making sure everything's accurate. The name of the buyer, your brokerage, license number, your name, license number, and then the seller's or listing agent, brokerage, license number. Good. Wire fraud advisory. Good, they're there. Okay, and this is now the residential purchase agreement. So the date prepared is traditionally going to be the day that you're writing it. So today's June 10th. Mickey Mouse is the name of the buyer. You can see here the address looks like it populated correctly. City of Visalia, County of Tulare, zip code here, and the assessor's parcel number did populate as well. So my clients are offering $320,000 on this house. As you can see right above, it does have it written out in actual words, just making sure that matches. It populates automatically, but just put your eyes on everything, make sure. If your sellers need anything other than a traditional 30-day escrow, you could check this box and type in here a date or any other verbiage you need. But most of the time, it's going to be 30-day escrow. Here you'll see, okay, so you've got Modern Broker and Sarah. They represent the seller. That will automatically populate these two boxes. And then you are the buyer. So you click here and that automatically populates those boxes. If these were both Keller Williams agents or you were representing both sides, if you click this, it will automatically populate all these boxes here, showing that you are both sides. But we're going to go ahead and take this off and go back to normal. Perfect. Scrolling down here, so this first number, the earnest money deposit, we've already dropped that in. That's the initial deposit. So it's asking here, buyer direct deposit, buyer shall deliver deposit directly to escrow by electronic funds transfer, or you can select personal check, other, cashier's check. Most popular is cashier's check. If you need to write anything other than the 3 business days, you'd populate that right here. But traditionally 3 business days, cashier's check, you're good. Right here, this is basically or. So initial deposit or, almost never are you going to use this, so we're going to skip right over it. A1 is normally the selection. Increased deposit normally, again, is not a factor in most deals, so we're going to skip over it. If this was an all cash offer, you'd select this box and all the financing terms are going to go ahead and just white out for you, but we're going to pretend this is a conventional buyer. So the first amount of the loan. So this is how you're going to do the math. Now, this is a preference alert. This is a preference. So some agents leave all of this blank and allow this number here just to sit where it is. It's deducting the EMD from the total price. It's showing this is going to be the balance of down payment or purchase price. Some agents will leave this. Some agents would like to actually fill this in. So let's go ahead and do this together. I'm going to pull up my calculator on my phone. I know you can't see me, but I'm just telling you what I'm doing. So 320,000, if you have a 5% down buyer, on 320,000, they're going to put down $16,000. So we're going to deduct 16,000. Again, this is if it's a 5% buyer conventional on this 320,000. We're going to take the 16,000 away, and the technical loan amount, the first loan amount that they're actually financing, is going to be 304,000. Just like that. So it's showing that they're going to be putting down 5% along with the earnest money deposit. It's going to show that they are, there we go. Yeah. Okay. Sorry. Okay. Yeah. So it's going to show that this is the first loan amount. And again, they're conventional, so we don't have to check any of these boxes. If they were FHA or VA, we would. If there's a secondary loan, you'd write that here. So they are actually financing, of the 320,000, they're financing 304 of it because they are going to be putting down 16,000. Okay. Some agents, another preference alert, some agents do in fact write in here an initial rate not to exceed a certain amount. So and this is something that agents have done in the past to protect their buyers so that if rates do go up, the buyer can back out due to that. Again, this is totally a preference. If you wanted to put not to exceed, you're welcome to do so. I personally do not. And then here, additional financing terms. So this is where you'd write in if the buyer needed closing costs. So you'd say seller to contribute X amount or X percent of the purchase price towards buyer's closing costs. You could either say buyer's non-reoccurring and reoccurring closing costs or not. Again, that's a preference alert. And scrolling down here, if you need to change the time of the contingency periods, this is where you would do so. There's two sections to do it. This is the first. If this is a traditional purchase, just scroll down. If it's contingent on the buyer selling their house, you would check this box here, and this would populate what's called a COP, which is contingency of property form, and that would be, it would drop into your documents and you'd have to fill that out, but we're going to pretend like this is just traditional purchase. This section here for addenda and advisories, some agents I've seen, they throw in a couple other forms here. So they'll have their buyer sign, for example, the statewide buyer and seller advisory, that SBSA. Some people throw that in. Some people do the Tulare County local option in the other section. I've seen agents do that. Now, completely preference alert, you're able to do that. You can throw as many things at your buyers as you want them to sign. The reason I only do the buyer's inspection advisory, which is defaulted here, and I don't add anything else, is because hopefully my offer gets accepted, but in the event it doesn't, they are gonna have to sign those again. So I would so much rather just, once I get them into contract, have my TC, who's Katie, send over all those disclosures and forms that they need to sign, just these main ones that are automatically defaulted and mandatory. I go ahead and just send them these. So again, in the other terms, this is where you can literally pretty much write any other terms. Do you want to pay money over appraised value? Do you want to accelerate your offer over the highest proven offer against you? Something like that you could write in here. So other terms would go here. And then dropping down to the bottom here of page 2 of the RPA, it's talking about inspections. So this is where I've dropped in Snap and HD. We're going to go ahead and designate that the seller pays for this. And I also do include environmental on that one. It's just a full workup of the environmental hazards. So I go ahead and check that box. If the buyer wanted either themselves or the seller to provide a termite inspection report or even a roof inspection report, you could write that in. You could go as far as to say inspection report for termite with section 1 and 2 clearance, or with section 1 clearance, or a roof inspection report with 2-year roof certification. Now, when it comes to the negotiation side and being strategic in having a strong offer, I always recommend, if it's possible, to leave such things like that off the contract and allow the buyer to pay for themselves during escrow, and you let the selling agent know this. You let the buyers know, look, I can leave this off the contract. You can go ahead and pay for the termite inspection. It's anywhere from $50 to $100. And a roofer will come out for free to inspect the roof and then give you an estimate or proposal on what repairs and how much it would cost to actually go ahead and obtain that 2-year roof certification. So if you're able to leave it off contract, it does make it stronger. I always let the selling agent know, or the listing agent, I let them know, hey, my buyers are going to conduct these inspections. We will share the reports with you. And if we're concerned about anything, we will put it on the request for repairs. If your buyers are insistent on putting it on contract, this is where you would add it. Now, for this part here, the government requirements and retrofit. So alert, preference alert. So this one, in the state of California, anytime a transfer of property happens, it is required by law that smoke detector, carbon monoxide detector, and water heaters, if they're not tankless, are strapped and braced with seismic straps, top and bottom. So no matter what, I always click seller. It is a requirement in the state of California, so even if you didn't check this box, it could still be enforced. But I always check this box. It just kind of shows I'm paying attention. I'm acknowledging this is a rule. I'm going to go ahead and say seller is going to be responsible for this. Another preference alert here is number 2. So if you read these through, which I'm going to read them right now so I can explain them to you. So buyer or seller shall pay the cost of compliance with any other minimum mandatory government inspections and reports if required as a condition of closing escrow under any law. Some agents leave this blank. Some agents will click seller. And then this one, seller shall pay the cost of compliance with any other minimum mandatory government retrofit standards required as a condition of closing escrow under any law, whether the work is required to be completed before or after escrow. I have never checked this box. I will probably never check this box. And if I receive a offer on a listing I have, I will counter this out. This is essentially an open checkbook on a seller to retrofit all the things in their home based on any code that has ever come down the pipeline. An example of this, I think I may have told you before, garage door openers are now required to have a backup battery because of the Sonoma County fires that happened. Unfortunately, recently, some people were trapped in their home and they did in fact perish because they were unable to get out of their garage because the power went out, and so there was no way for the garage door to open. So this is something now that is a minimum mandatory government requirement, and it would be considered retrofit. So if there is a home, which even my personal home doesn't have a battery backup because it's such a new law, this would essentially require the seller to take care of that. And that's just one example. There's probably a book of them that I don't even know. So I never check this, and I do counter this out. I don't want my sellers to have an open checkbook. If something comes up during escrow, everything's negotiable. Buyers can ask for what they'd like, and sellers can respond accordingly. Escrow and title. So here we're going to check both buyer and seller shall pay escrow fees. Again, preference alert. Some agents write half each. I actually write each to pay their own. And I used to write half each, and then I was told that even though it's almost always a pretty even split, there are times where the seller or buyer side does incur more costs, just depending on the type of loan, the type of transaction, how long it goes, who's got the escrow title, etc. It's all very circumstantial. So for me, the most fair way to write this is each to pay their own. And then escrow holder shall be, I go ahead and write in here, seller's choice. And then seller is always responsible. Well, in my understanding and education, seller is always responsible to pay for owner's title policy. And again here, seller's choice. So owner's title policy should be issued by. And as you know, Main Street Escrow is an escrow company. They are not title. So that's why escrow and title can be separated. They can be two different entities. Chicago Title and First American Title also are escrow holders. So they are dual. But in our situation, for me personally, I use Main Street Escrow. I don't know if you are, but that's why it is separated escrow title. They are two different entities. So scrolling down here to other costs, there are things I automatically do here. Preference alert, alert. Here's what I do. I say 1, 2, and 7, and I say seller shall pay for these if applicable. And what I'm going to do here is copy this, and I'm just going to paste it on all 3. If this home was in an HOA, I would also select item 3 and type applicable, or if applicable, even HOA transfer, however you want to write it in. You don't have to write anything here. Just seller shall pay for it if you know for sure it's in an HOA. Also, number 5, seller shall pay for HOA fees for preparing all documents other than those required by Civil Code 4525. So anything of that nature with HOA, I typically say it's the seller's responsibility. Here you're going to see number 10 is discussing home warranty. So if your buyer would like to get a home warranty, go ahead and select seller. I normally start off at $650. That's kind of high, and I've been countered lower before, but I go ahead and jump to $650 just to give some wiggle room if my buyers, want anything more than just a standard. And I always select upgraded and air conditioner, and if applicable, I also select pool. So that's how I do this one. And then I go through First American Home Warranty. And the reason I do is because they also offer something called seller's coverage, which is interim coverage during escrow. Even though it's labeled seller's coverage, as a buyer's agent, I actually place this on the property from day 1 of escrow opening. So that way I can help alleviate costs on the seller. If a home inspection report comes back and there's some items on there my buyer would like fixed, I can go ahead and submit that to the home warranty because it's not considered a pre-existing condition as I've already placed the coverage on property. So anything that comes up in the inspection is not pre-existing, it is brand new information. So I send that over to the home warranty for a $75 trip charge. The seller can pay that and hopefully get things taken care of, replaced, repaired, etc., and only have to pay that trip charge of $75, which I think is a fantastic deal. Now, even if I place it on the property, if it's not used, I don't pay for it. If it is used, I do pay for it. And it's anywhere from like 30 to 90 cents a day of escrow. So you're looking at about $40 to $50 for the 30-day escrow. And for me, that's a very minimal cost just to help out the situation. And also selling agents will really appreciate you for that. I've had a lot of compliments and a lot of thank yous from selling agents that are so grateful that I went ahead and did that, because even though they're not my clients as the seller, unless I'm double ending it, it does help their seller save money potentially. So if for any reason they didn't want a home warranty, they can go ahead and check this box. It says that they waive a purchase of the plan, but it doesn't say that they can't get one during the course of escrow. So if we check this box and we decide that they wanted to ask for it in the request for repairs because maybe the AC and water heater are just really old and they're kind of worried about it, maybe they're past its life expectancy or coming up on its life expectancy, you could certainly have this box checked on this contract, and then in your request for repairs, go ahead and ask for a 1-year home warranty from the seller. Absolutely, everything's negotiable. Here are the items included in the sale. Obviously, by default, I always check stove unless for some reason the home is not being sold with stove. If your buyers would also like the fridge or washer dryer, these are the boxes you can check here. Anything else that you would like to have included in the sale at no cost to your buyer. Example would be patio furniture, maybe a piece of furniture in the house, anything like that that they'd like to ask for at no other charge to them. You can certainly write that in. I normally recommend doing that on an addendum. This RPA, Residential Purchase Agreement, goes to all parties, escrow and the lender. And if you have a lot going on there, the lender will become a little bit of a stickler in the processing phases of contract, and they can, start to pick at you and ask you, things about it. So whatever you can leave off of here and put on an addendum, I always recommend, because you don't have to send the addendum to the lender. So, okay, anything excluded from sale, if the seller had mentioned anything on the MLS excluded, you can certainly write that in. This little section here, preference alert, this little section, some people do in fact check this box. This basically says that anything attached to the walls that are going to be taken, like a TV mount or a picture frame, nail in the wall, that kind of thing. Basically, you're asking that the damages are repaired, but not painted over. So they're not required to paint in the situation. They're just required to fix the holes with a little bit of putty or, whatever. So that's what that is talking about there. Scrolling down, most of this you're going to leave blank. This talks about tenant in possession, not very common. Most of this is going to be left blank. This also talks about, again, timelines. Here's the secondary section, as I mentioned, for contingency timelines. You'd fill this in. This is removing of contingency on contract, totally very rare. Scrolling down, we're almost to the end here. Oh, I do want to highlight something here. I think I mentioned this before. Item 21, A and B. This is talking about if there was any kind of, oh, excuse me, what I meant to say was 22. 22, A and B, this talks about mediation and arbitration. So always let your clients know if there was a legal matter that came up in contract, please let me consult with my brokers and our acting attorneys, because if you seek legal counsel on your own without our involvement, you basically kick us out of it, and now you are liable for all time and money associated with any legal proceedings. And they have to initial there. If they opt out of this, it basically means they have their own agent, or excuse me, their own attorney that they'd go through, and they would not like the brokers to intervene and try to mediate. So again, if you want an expiration of the offer, this is where you'd stick it in to show the offer expires. If not, leave it blank. And this is the bottom. This is your last chance here just to make sure everything looks accurate for the contact information of yourself and also the selling agent or listing agent. And now you're on the buyer inspection advisory, where it's just listing the address here and the name of the buyer to sign, and then the Consumer Privacy Act buyer to sign, and you're all done. So you're going to click save, and you're going to jump back out, and you're going to jump into for your protection, get a home inspection. There's no action required on this. I just like to open it and make sure my buyer's name is spelled correctly. Great. If this was a VA or FHA buyer, I'm going to click on the amendatory clause, and I'm going to type in here that this is an addendum to the California Residential Purchase Agreement. It's dated for, and today would be, applicable is the 10th. Make sure the address and the buyer's name is accurate, and what you're going to type right here is the actual amount that you're offering. Okay, and then you would save. Oh, one more zero there. Perfect. And scroll down, make sure this is all accurate. You would save, and you're going to go back. So now that you're all done and you're confident everything is accurate, you're going to click this little e-sign button, and you're going to click on new, and now you're going to select the documents. So residential purchase agreement for your protection, and again, if they were VA or FHA, you're going to click this one, and you can leave this as signature packet 1. I typically will type in purchase offer docs and then address, or even just street name, whichever you prefer. You're going to select next, and now is where you select your signers. So I like to send everything to my buyer first, and then it comes back to me. I fact check it, make sure they didn't miss anything, and then I sign it myself. So buyer 1, and also yourself, selling agency. I told you before, you're a buyer's agent, but you're also a selling agent, because the selling agent is also the listing agent. Little confusing, kind of silly, but it is what it is. So when you're done selecting those people, you're going to say close and next. It's going to ask you if you want to put insurance on these documents. No, you do not. You don't need cybersecurity. Okay. Now, most of these documents will auto-populate for buyer signature and initial and yourself. I'm going to just zoom out a little bit. What I like to do is just scroll down and just make sure they're there. So, yep, buyer's there, I'm there. Some of these are just buyer signing. Some of these are me too. Okay, yep, buyer signing, I'm signing. Just the buyer on this one. Okay, and this is another chance to put your eyes on everything and make sure this looks correct. Okay, looks good, looks good. Perfect. Okay, looks good. I'm going through, make sure I wrote what I needed to write in all these, make sure all these boxes are checked correctly. Okay. Just double checking, making sure those signatures are auto-populating on the bottom, which they are. And I'm just going to get all the way down to the end. And it looks good. So from here, you're going to click send. Now, I'm not going to click it because it really will send. So you're going to click send. And as I mentioned to you on the phone before, a box is going to pop up that has some blue buttons. Just make sure that you select the recipients are your buyer, signer 1, and yourself, signer 2, and then click send. So just make sure you do all the way to the very end, follow through with that. I'm going to go ahead and back out of here. I'm going to go to my dashboard, and I'm actually going to delete this. Oh, transactions. Sorry. I'm going to delete this. Oh, look, I made one earlier. Perfect. Okay, I've deleted those. So that is it in a nutshell. I hope that that makes sense. I hope that helped you. Let me know if you have any further questions on this, but I think that should sum it up. So good luck to you. And if you need any help with specific negotiations or how to, put other specific things into an offer besides just the traditional I showed you, please let me know and I'm happy to help.